Welcome everyone. I hadn't intended to do a video this month. I haven't been well this past week, and the assistant editor that I use here in the Philippines had several cases of COVID in her street, so that was shut down. We're still in a military lockdown here in the Philippines. Many of you know that I'm actually living here, and so it's been a little difficult getting any sort of traction, and then on top of that not feeling too well, but I couldn't leave you empty-handed. So what I'm going to do this month, if you don't mind, is just do a single video and just mark the spots in the video which provide you the 12 signs, just a little bit on each, so that you can at least take something away with you. You know, the transits of the planets are really happening every moment. It's not just the sun moving around, or apparently moving around every 365 days, nor the moon every 28 days, but even the earth is turning on itself. And each sign of the zodiac is rising on the eastern horizon every couple of hours. These minute transits are really reflective of the transition we are going through moment by moment. This moment by moment transition is what's all important, and how we handle the, as I call them, the forks in the road of life. These forks aren't these huge sort of big decisions that we make every few years. They're forks every moment in our life where we have a decision. Should I be thinking like this? Should I be sort of saying this to that person? How can I better communicate this concept? So it's a fork every moment. It's a decision. And these transits indicate the challenges we have moment by moment. It's interesting that the word transit is part of the word transition, transit, transition. And in Vedic astrology, the planets are called grahas. It's interesting, the word graha, if you translate this Sanskrit word into English, it means to seize, being seized. So the planets do indeed seize us. We all like to think we have free will. But actually, if you observe your life, you'll realize that moment by moment, you know, women, if you're having that PMT moment, you realize there are moments where you don't actually have control. Things just happen. You fall off the bike, you bang your leg on the table. These are things you don't freely will. And so again, those forks have to do with how are you experiencing that? How are you dealing with those moment by moment transits? The experience you're having under the influence of these grahas, those planets which seize you and almost, well, some astrologers say they don't compel, they impel. Nevertheless, we accept, I do anyhow as an astrologer, that a lot of these experiences and events that are happening are largely out of our control. But to some extent you have an opportunity to act or react in a different way. That takes some practice. And so today I thought we'd look at, I've got the charts here to see how these grahas are influencing us. I don't have the video format of it, but I'll just talk through what I think are some of the pertinent aspects for each of the 12 signs this month. Pardon me. I guess the big transit is the lunar eclipse on 26th of May, and it is taking place in the sign of Sagittarius. The sun will have moved into Gemini on the 21st. So 5 days later we see this opposition. It takes place on the nodal axis. And so Sagittarius is one of the key signs this month, given that we have that eclipse. And I'm going to talk about that for each of the 12 signs in a moment. I'm just punctuating the month with some important transits, including the transit of the sun into Gemini, talkative, communicative, ideative, flip-flopping Gemini. Not always, but that's generally how we see it. And then we have the Venus transit and Mercury transit also into Gemini this month. So these two signs, Sagittarius and Gemini, are going to predominate and give their effects. So let's start so that we can see exactly how these two signs and the transits by these grahas, these Caesars of destiny, these influences of each and every moment are going to impact all of us through the month of May 2021. So Aries, the sign of Gemini, obviously has to do with your communication, your skills as a speaker, a negotiator. They have to do with your contracts, and the transits of Mercury, the Sun and Venus through this sign, also being on the nodal axis, indicate some karmic consequences. So you have to be very, very careful this month how you deliver what you have to say to others, how you present your case, because these can have long-term ramifications. Remember, once a word leaves your mouth, it's never going to come back. And words have great power to influence people, to influence circumstances, to influence your world and your destiny. So a lot of weight will be on this part of your life, communication, negotiation. A lot of travels usually shown, and the Mercury and Venus combination in this third house are an excellent social element for you, giving you a lot of enjoyment and fun with the people that you happen to be interacting with. Now the eclipse takes place in Sagittarius, which is your 9th house, and that has to do with your philosophy, your higher ideals. You know, the eclipses tend to block out the energies. This can, for you anyhow, indicate a shutting down of your emotions, because the moon is regulating your 4th house, which has to do with your domestic sphere, your emotional and inner contentment. So this blocking off of the lunar energies is exactly that. It has a reference to your internal life, your emotional life, and the way you're dealing with your emotions as far as your belief systems are concerned. There may be some conflicts there as well, which have to do with the way you are received by members of your family. The moon has to do with your domestic sphere, your mother, your relatives. And so there can be a mismatch between you and them, and some disconnect in terms of your beliefs and theirs. Of course, that 3rd house, which is opposite the 9th, relating to your communication, I think is going to have a lot to do with how you communicate your ideas, how you share your opinions with others this month. So that's very, very important. Taurus, the month starts with a conglomeration of planets in your sun sign. Uranus, the Sun, Venus and Mercury. They're a chock full bunch of energy influencing you and your sun sign. The Sun and Uranus combination in close proximity is very destabilizing, and so it's better for you you're the type of person that likes to take things systematically and not have to rely on chance. Unfortunately, this month, you're going to have to adapt. Those transits of the 3 planets, Sun, Mercury, and Venus, into your 3rd house give you more adaptability and the opportunity to break free of those ingrained patterns of being stuck in your ways. And for you, this will happen in your 2nd house of finance, with that eclipse taking place on the 26th in your 8th house. So it's all about money this month, but the eclipse has a lot to do with understanding the nature of your shared resources and the way you do business with other people. That 8th house is the shared resources. Now, they're not always financial resources. The 8th house is also the house of sexuality and intimacy. And so your sexual intimacy is a shared resource. Getting closer to the person that you love is, in a sense, a shared resource. The blocking off of the lunar rays involves the emotional entanglements associated with those moments of intimacy. And so part of your lesson this month through this eclipse is learning the art of sharing. For you, the moon is ruling your 3rd house, which is the house of valor, courage, desire. And so there's a strong link there between your desire and your attempt to break free of your patterns. This is not just your pattern of, being a little bit stubborn, as they say Taurus is, but being open to trying new things, especially in terms of your relationships, in terms of how you express yourself, how you show love to your partner, and how your partner shows love to you. So it's a month for you in which you make your feelings known and don't be scared to step out. Look like I've got I've got the rays of the sun. When the nodes are involved in these eclipses, Taurus, it means there's some heavy ramification from the business and financial decisions you make. So you have to be extremely careful how you manage your money and how you interact with others, how you accept money from others, because remember that law of power. Always despise the free lunch. Don't indebt yourself. Don't put yourself in a position where you are beholden to others. I think that's the lesson this month. And by all means, experiment. Gemini, you still have Mars transiting your 2nd house of finances. That's going to get stronger and stronger as it moves to the finance area. And I did mention that in a couple of my notes over the last month, that this transit can produce some problems with your finances and your money. But the triple transit of the Sun, Mercury and Venus this month for you in your Sun sign is very telling, along with the North Node, showing a very, very important cycle is underway for you. The position of the North Node, that karmic point, showing what your destiny is likely to be, is extremely significant. So the lunar eclipse takes place in Sagittarius with this triple transit in your Sun sign. So this is all about your personal relationships, marriage, partnering up with other people. And of course, similar to what I just said about Taurus, the moon for you has to do with your money and your income. So the blocking off of the rays of that planet may show some insights into the way that you've been earning your money, the way that you've been expecting the universe to provide you the funds you need for what you want to do. And so really with the triple transit and the karmic planet in your Sun sign, I'm going to throw this back onto who you are rather than the money itself. This is all about who you are and finding, as I've said in many of my talks, your core competency, what it is within yourself that is either blocking you or helping you to attract the things that you want in your life, particularly the material things. Mars is not a friendly planet for you, so therefore its transit in the 2nd house of income shows your need to Be careful of friends. Don't rely on friends for money. Don't rely on your partner for money. It really is about developing more independence and nutting out what it is you want to achieve in your life through this process of earning, working, and doing what you love, predominantly based upon this core competency. You're going to feel the effects of that around the eclipse. And by the way, there may be some issue associated with your partner. If you're married, you're in a relationship, your spouse or partner may have some issues that they are dealing with financially. So it's best to keep those two things separate and deal with your issues, and don't try dictating to the other person what they should do. You've got enough on your plate to deal with this month. So focus on that, and by tuning into your core competency, you're going to find yourself in a position to attract more money, and what's more important, attract more money doing exactly what it is you love doing and what you're really passionate about. Cancer, the 12th house transit of the 3 planets I'm talking about here is very significant from a spiritual perspective. This is a month where you are going to find yourself helping others, caring for others, which is part of your trademark anyhow, being the emotional water sign. But this has even greater significance for you, especially because the eclipse is taking place in your 6th house of service. So the key word for you this month is indeed the word service. How can you work and improve your quality of service to others? What is it that you can do to differentiate yourself in the marketplace? It's a really, really competitive arena right now. And I know a lot of people are hurting. And in fact, here in Manila, near where I live, there are something like 12,000 people in Quezon City who are starving. Right, I'm getting people every day texting me, asking me, not for money, but for food. That just shows, along with the pandemic and, especially in these third world countries, the competitive nature of doing business, of just struggling day to day in life, requires you to step up and be your best. How can you be better? How can you tap into these aspects of your nature that allow others to get a sense that you're not just doing what you do for a buck. You're actually doing it because you love it, because you're great at it, and because you care for other people. So this is the significance of the lunar transit, the eclipse in your 6th house. That eclipse, by the way, in the 6th house has some health connotations for you. The 6th house, yes, has to do with the competition that you're going to experience. If you're in a workplace environment, there can be some heated emotions or some revelations that come to visit you this month regarding your competitors. But it also has to do with your health and how you're dealing with the day-to-day scheduling of your life, because that is going to have an impact on how you feel, the nature of your disease, and generally the nature of your well-being. It may not even be disease. People often don't feel sick, but they're not really running at their optimum. So the question for you this month is, well, where am I at here from 0 to 10? How can I improve that? How can I really drive my energy levels up? How can I become more efficient? How can I serve my fellow man and my customers in a better way, my family? These are all the questions that are going to come to light under the lunar eclipse. Leo, this eclipse for you is going to take place in your 5th house. 5th house is your creativity. 5th house is your love affairs, your children. It is really considered one of the spiritual houses in some of the systems of astrology that I've studied. And a lot of astrologers don't quite connect that to spirituality. But when you think of it, when you are creative and when you are completely immersed in the moment, then you are going to do your best work. When you're not clock watching, when the the experience that you're having is at 1. You feel completely connected to the thing that you're doing. So really this month, especially with the triple transit of the Sun, Mercury and Venus in your 11th house, there's a social connotation here and a plugging into your social contacts and your social networks to really develop your creative skills. For parents, this is a time when there may be some emotional issues surrounding the child. Eldest child notably is the 5th house. So you must, in a way, take note of that. The greatest creation you can make is that of a child. So your life is going to center on these things throughout the month of May 2021 and beyond that, because the eclipses and these transits are just triggers. What you do under these transits is going to have long-term ramifications. Find what it is that you're comfortable doing, a hobby. Competitive sports are also a way for you to get back into that zone, which is the timeless, spaceless area of your nature, where you're completely at one with yourself and the environment and people around you. Virgo first in the sequence. Virgo, you have a very powerful conjunction of those 3 planets with the node in your 10th house this month. So the career is going to be very, very important. But the eclipse in the 4th house is going to challenge you there from the family perspective. This is about divided loyalties and finding specifically what you can do to meet your deadlines, your requirements professionally, but also give your family and loved ones the time that they require as well. The 4th house of the horoscope has a lot to do with how you're feeling within yourself, how you are tuning into those emotional and spiritual vibrations. Because sometimes we sacrifice the things we love most for the things that we think we love most. For example, career, achievement, money, that brand new car. And all the while we are eroding those other areas of our lives, such as the domestic, family, relationship areas, which are probably better served by us giving them time. You know, the best things in life aren't things. And I remind people of that. And he who dies with the most toys is nonetheless still dead. So I want you to think of that, especially during this eclipse period of 26th of May. Leading up to that, you're going to feel the build-up of energy. And it is indeed going to affect your domestic sphere, your family affairs, and it may even have some bearing on your real estate transactions, where you live, domestic construction, redesign, refurbishment, interior design, all those sorts of things are under the purview of this 4th house lunar eclipse taking place on the 26th of May. Libra, the eclipse for you is going to take place in your 3rd house, similar to what we saw with Aries. If your sign is opposite, there are going to be similar sorts of effects that will be experienced by you. The eclipse of the 3rd house can show some fear arising right now. The 3rd house has to do with a decision you must make, a course of action you want to take. But the eclipsing of the moon, which is your profession planet, shows that the brakes are put on at some crucial stage of the process right now. And I don't want you to overthink this. I think if you feel that you must stop something and you don't feel comfortable about it, you must trust your intuitive process on that. The moon is very much linked to the sensitivity of an individual. For you, this intuitive response has a lot to do with your work. It has to do with your employer, 10th house, moon. The ruler of your 10th house is the employer, and your relationship with that person. Your intuition is telling you something right now. You may need to stop your work dead in your tracks, especially as this eclipse takes place on the 26th. Many of your beliefs are changing now. That's also shown by the North Node transiting through the 9th house of your horoscope, being aspected by Jupiter. You'll find in any horoscope where there is a combined influence of the North Node, what we call Rahu, and Jupiter, the philosophical persuasion changes. The person is heretical, you heretic, you. Now, what I mean there is that you are prepared now and under these transits to reevaluate your beliefs. That may have some bearing on your professional life. And so you must be open to what these transits, these Caesars, not Caesar as in Rome's Caesar, but to seize, these planets are seizing you to think differently, to act differently. They're prompting you to stop things, especially if those mechanisms haven't worked for you before. You know, there's no point using the same tool to fix something if it's not fixing it. So that's your challenge this month, Libra. Move with the times, go with the flow, change if you have to, stop things if they're not working for you. That may also have some relevance to your siblings. Third house is your siblings, younger siblings in particular. Scorpio, this is all about the money for you. The eclipse of the moon is also for you a shift, as I've just mentioned to Libra, a shift in terms of your philosophy of money making, what money means to you. Many Scorpios, including myself, evaluate their success. Indeed, most people do, but Scorpios can become almost obsessive about money. You must understand that Scorpio is the natural 8th house of the horoscope. So it has an intrinsic resonance with other people's money. Yeah, the Scorpio can indeed manage other people's money. It has to do with affairs of the dead, wills, legacies, inheritances, insurances, all of these sorts of things. But it falling in the 2nd house, it may show that you're becoming a lot more cautious. The lunar eclipse on the 26th happens smack bang there in the house of finance for you. And that also has to do with your value system. What you value, how you value. You may find that and I've also talked about this in the past, the metrics you use to measure your success may now no longer simply rest on monetary currency. There are many forms of currency, and many Scorpios now are finding that this expansion, this eclectic view of currency to include time and love and other forms of energy, other forms of resources, I call it elegant currency, is starting to take over now. And I think that's a good thing. But the fact that you've rested your decision-making processes on a lot of this value system throughout your life, there will be some fear and apprehension associated with shifting your belief system to a new currency, to a new way of measuring how successful you are, measuring how fulfilled you are, and not relying wholly and solely on those financial metrics. Think about that. You can meditate on that. Expand your view of money, your view of currency to include these other more important ways of seeing what constitutes value. Sagittarius, as per the reading for Gemini, we do see that the triple transit in your 7th house of marriage, Venus and Mercury are beautiful in this part of your horoscope. They really bring a lot more to the table in terms of your communication, your joy, your enjoyment of the relationships you're having, and your luck with people generally. That's going to happen more by way of you not relying too much on emotion. You have to be a little more calculative. That's the Mercury combination in your 7th house. And that brings with it really great opportunities for travel too. Not many astrologers even are aware of the fact that the 7th house brings a lot of change with it, especially when Sagittarius, which is a mutable sign, gives you the opportunity for change, for movement, curiosity, which is the Mercury component of it transiting through your 7th house. And very, very good communication skills and negotiations as well. Along with the 3rd house, the 7th house relates to the way you relate to people. People generally, not just your chosen spouse or partner or business associate. Now, I also want to talk here about the transformative nature of the moon transiting during this eclipse time, your sun sign, because it does show a deeper significance and delving into your inner emotional nature, and especially the mother energies have a lot to do with this. The moon being the representative of your mother, and also the moon at the moment, what we call disposing of Mars, debilitated in your 8th house. Mars is transiting this 8th house, this transformative part of your horoscope, while the moon rules that area and is eclipsed. So there's some revelations, some sweet, some not so sweet, that you have to deal with. The important thing for you this month, I think, is not being afraid to confront your inner demons, face them head on, accept them, accept that what's happened has happened. You cannot change the past. And really, from my many years of experience, probably the single most important underlying facet of transformation, self-transformation we're talking about, is acceptance, and just looking with loving eyes on your past and not judging yourself too harshly, please. Just understanding that what's happened for a good reason. And that all that bullshit is like the bullshit of the gardener. Cow shit is beautiful fertilizer. Just got to use it and mulch it properly, and then all those beautiful fragrant flowers can grow from that. Stop looking at it as smelly shit. Start using it is the theme, I think, this month for you, Sagittarius, with this important lunar transit in your sun sign. That's very, very significant, because Sagittarius is the location of this transiting eclipse. Capricorn, the eclipse takes place in your 12th house of spirituality, seeing beyond the normal things we see, looking with spiritual eyes. Now, that's not a whole lot of mumbo jumbo. I think it has to do for you largely with spiritual eyes that see beyond, for example, the shortcomings of other people. You know, I'm a culprit. You know, I'm always blaming other people. I'm always highly critical of everyone. And so, you know, I think we should all take note of this, but for you particularly, Capricorn, that critical eye, that seeing the shortcomings, is something that needs to be looked beyond. You've got to look beyond the shortcomings of others this month. That itself is a very spiritual process, a very spiritual perception. To see beyond the human frailties and the weaknesses of others, especially those that we're in close relationship with, is a very, very energizing sort of thing. It's a stage of forgiveness. It's a stage of accepting that, you know, others also have their flaws, and turning that eye of critique back on one's self, I think, is the key this month. 12th house is generosity and giving of oneself. 12th house is the other world. So yes, it is for some of you that are deeply engrossed in your spiritual activities, your mantras, your yoga, your self-inquiry. All of these things can prosper under the eclipse. Under the eclipses, if you're spiritually inclined, you should take time to simply sit quietly indoors, meditate under the eclipse. You will have some deep insights into yourself, into others. And the universe will provide you with some signs, some signals. You've got to be very, very receptive to that. That happens in silence, within your own being. Make the time, especially around that eclipse day, the 26th is the date. You will see very, very clearly what the eclipse is saying to you. The 6th house combination of the Sun, Venus and Mercury is important as well. This shows opportunities for work, but a danger of spreading yourself too thin. So just keep your focus on one thing this month, do it properly, and then systematically work through all of those other things you have on your task list. Aquarius, the lunar eclipse is nice in your 11th house. All the planets prosper in the 11th house. The eclipses do well, but the 11th house has to do with your social connections and friendships. This may point to a very close friendship being jeopardized, I think, this month. Now that can take several different forms. The vibe I'm getting with the 3 transits. Aquarius, the eclipse for you is pretty significant in that it happens in your 11th house, which has to do with your friendships. And these friendships may be under scrutiny right now. One in particular, I think, as a result of the eclipse on the 26th there. Now, there may be some issue of parameters crossing the line in some way. And I'm not saying this is going to happen to everyone born under the sign of Aquarius, but for some of you, perhaps, friendships that are moving towards that romantic phase may be a little difficult to navigate. And of course, you've got those 3 transits of the Sun, Venus, and Mercury moving through the sign of Gemini, your 5th house. Now, that's important too, because you've got the North Node, or the karmic point, that has been transiting this area for some time now. So this is definitely a period of reevaluation of your romantic inclinations, the way you've been parenting your children. All of those things that are of a creative nature are under the auspices of this 5th house. The 11th house also has to do with your life dream, your life goals, your aspirations in life. The eclipse there, all the planets do well in the 11th house, but the eclipse is slightly different there. For you, it actually rules your 6th house of health and enemies. So it's an interesting one, because it's good for the ruler of the 6th house to be weak. That moon should be weak, and the eclipse does shut off all of its power. So, in some instances, enemies can become friends, or friends that had once become enemies can once again be re-engaged. So there could be something along those lines that you're going to be dealing with throughout the month of May, and in particular after that eclipse occurs on the 26th of May. The 11th house does fulfill one's dreams, but we can see here that maybe there's a change of heart. The moon has to do with where your heart and your desire are focused. And of course, when Venus, which is the planet of love, enters into this area, it's also going to be aspecting your 11th house. And Venus is the planet of love, showing us what one's heart's desire is. So all of these things that you desire in life may be subjected to some change now, and you should openly embrace that change without any fear. If you let go of something, rest assured something better is going to replace it. Pisces, I always feel bad that Pisces, you're the last in line. The placement of the eclipse in your 10th house is a career position. the placement of the 3 transits I've been focusing on this month, Sun, Venus and Mercury, take place in your 4th house on the nodal axis. So all of these planets, the eclipse included, have an immense impact on your work. And it's showing us that there may now be a period that you're entering where you've lost the taste, you've lost the love and the energy for the work that you're doing. The eclipse will shut off that energy. Now, that may bring it to a screeching halt, and you may think, God, that's not good, Dodici. But I'm going to say it is good, because while you've been engaging yourself in work, activities, projects, tasks that have very little sweetness or creative connectivity attached to them, that affords you the opportunity to recognize what other things are arising as a substitute, a better substitute, I might add, for those activities that you no longer feel any sort of affinity with. So I think it's a karmic expulsion. It's a karmic purge for you, especially in the area of your working life, your profession. Of course, don't forget too, Pisces, that the 10th house is one's accumulated identity. It's what you potentially can become. And while you're engaging yourself in things that you don't really feel any energy or love for, you are actually denying yourself the freedom and the love and the joy and the fulfillment that come with doing something that is really near and dear to your heart. So I think that eclipse on the 26th for you is a very, very important timeline marker, which says, it's sort of wake-up call. What are you doing, Pisces? And is this really what it is that you want to do in life? Heed the signals you sense from this eclipse and from these important transits that we've been talking about. And let's hope that you find what it is specifically that really lifts your energy levels to that point that you feel confident, happy and fulfilled in what you're doing. So that's it from me. I'd like you to go over, have a look at some of the transits. We've still got the transits there this month for each and every star sign, just so you can punctuate the month and just fill in the gaps of what I've said here. I hope you take a visit there to our store. You can see some of the more personalized reports that we have for you. They're very inexpensive, but they give you a little bit more of a personalized approach to what's happening astrologically. Please subscribe. Don't forget to drop me a note if you'd like a more personal reading, face-to-face reading. We can do that, and I look forward to any of the comments that you leave here. Until next month, stay safe, enjoy yourself, and enjoy the eclipse. Bye-bye for now.